Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. Let's go! So first we're gonna speak about the Ukrainian attack on Sevastopol. I've already told about it in my latest video, but we have some of the details. For the first time in history, Ukraine confirmed shut down the Russian helicopter with the help of the drone boat. As you know, Russia uses the helicopters against Ukrainian drones, so here's the image filmed from one of those kind of the helicopters which is chasing the drone. Well, the helicopters in this case are mostly those Mi-8 or sometimes Kamov-27. Those are not the attack helicopters, so to hit the drone usually they open the door and shoot it directly. But yesterday something went wrong for Russians because Ukraine started to equip the manpads on the drone boats. And here you see how Russia initially tried to hit Ukrainian drone using some sort of the fighter jet. Clearly you may see the silhouette of maybe Sukhoi 27. And here we go with the helicopter and they try to shoot the drone, and this is the aiming from the drone itself. The helicopter target is locked, rocket went off. Here you can see how the Russian crew launched some of the flares, but it was too late. Rocket hit the helicopter. Yes, here you will see that it crashed into the water. Hope we can see it. Yeah, over here, the big splash, so it's the confirmation that the helicopter is down, or was down in this case. Moreover, one more drone tried to hit one more helicopter. Yes, there is the manpad missile, which went and it hit very close to the helicopter, and crew declared Mayday, emergency. They went to the Russian base, but some of the Russian Z channels say that this helicopter was also lost on the way. Here's the radio communication between the aircrew and the Russian command center. So they confirmed that they are falling down, being hit. The other helicopter reported the damages to some of the control systems. The engines are fine so far, they're holding. I'm heading to Kimbra. Kimbra is the base in Crimea and they're located 40 kilometers away from the shore. I started to maneuver and there was the bang in the propeller area, so far we don't know the destiny of this particular helicopter. Maybe it is also gone. On their channels, Russians definitely confirmed the loss of at least one of the helicopters. So downing of the Russian helicopter really changes the game for the Russian defense against the drone boats. Before they might easily go to the drone boats and kaput them, but now not anymore. Drones may respond. Before Ukraine tried to use different variants, for example, as in this case with machine gun. This video was shared roughly 1 month ago and the Ukrainian side reported that one of the Russian helicopters was shot down, but we didn't have the evidence from those kind of the videos. But today, or it's better to say yesterday, we obtained the real evidence that the Russian helicopter was hit and zeroed by the drone boat. Well, I do not expect that all of the Ukrainian drones will be equipped with the manpads, no, because first of all, it's too expensive to produce those kind of the drones. You need to have the special separate equipment to establish the separate communication for the weapon operator. I'm sure that there are two operators at least for that drone. One maneuvers the drone and the other one operates with the manpad. So maybe that modification will be 1 in 5 drones or 1 in 7 drones. And then there is the group of the drones going, so at least one will have the air defense capabilities. And it really changes the picture, not just for Russia, but in the future of the wars. Imagine like 100 of those drones equipped with the air defense going to hit kind of the large target. For example, an air carrier, so it's the cheap way to cause dramatic damage actually. The question for now is whether those drones will be used to cut the Kerch Bridge connection, because miraculously it is still there. I was almost sure that Ukraine would deal with that breach the last year, but it didn't happen. Yesterday Russia launched the drone attack on Ukraine and on one of the drones they put those RGB lights. So for them it's like a joke, but this particular drone was spotted really far away from the border in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. And later on it was shot down, so Ukraine also may play some of the jokes with the Russian drones. But unfortunately one of the drones hit the residential building in Kiev, Ukraine. The building was old and the fire spread really fast. Unfortunately 2 of the civilians were unalived by the Russian attack. That's how Russia continued to terrorize Ukrainian civilians even in the New Year Eve. And now guys, let's go to the Frontlines updates, because there we have the good news for Ukraine in the Kursk region. As you may see over here, Ukraine regained the control over the lost territories. Before, Russians broke through Ukrainian defense using North Korean soldiers, but in a long-term perspective, as you can see, it didn't help. With the heavy losses, Russians had to retreat from their previously gained positions. To hold this area for Russia, they need more of the mid-waves, more North Koreans, and probably in the nearby future, they'll continue to receive those. According to the information shared, Russia will send more of their old fighter jets like MiG-29 and Sukhoi-27 to North Korea as exchange for mid-waves. Some of the legacy media report that North Korea is up to send roughly 8,000 new soldiers. Well, it is really hard to say the exchange rate of MiG-29 relative to North Koreans. Maybe one airplane is valid for 1,000 North Korean soldiers, but what I know that Russia has many of those old airplanes. So definitely Russia may get many more North Koreans if this border continues to work. So the good news for us that Kruglenka again went under Ukrainian control. Russians lost this village, and it's very crucial because it protects the way to reach all of those villages. My friends, we're gonna review the other areas of the front lines very soon in this video. Now to the other news. So finally, after almost 3 years of the full-scale war of Russia against Ukraine, Ukraine has stopped the Russian gas supplies through its territory. Why wasn't it done before? Well, I guess our partners in Europe were against that move, but now they have some limited alternate like American LPG gas, and not only so they agreed for Ukraine to stop supplies. But you know that Hungary and Slovakia are strongly against that move of Ukraine, but now it's been done. No new agreement was signed with Russia. So from legal and physical perspective, Russians say that they're unable to supply gas to Europe any longer. Moreover, the pro-Russian self-proclaimed Republic Transnistria start to suffer without supplies. They also had some of the energy crisis. Their power plants are unable to work for a long time because they have just limited amount of coal. Well, Russia together with Transnistria accuse Ukraine and Moldova for the crisis. Ukraine lost roughly $800 million per year by cutting the Russian gas transit. But obviously Russia would get billions of dollars into their economy from the European countries, which actually would sponsor the Russian military production in this case. So I think that the decision to cut transit was done correctly, but a little too late. Guys, if you want to support the job that I do on YouTube, you might join my Patreon. The link for it is in the video description right below. Thank you so much for maintaining my motivation. Great news for Ukrainian Air Force. Roughly 200 of the Ukrainian aviators have passed one more stage of the training, and now they are fully ready for the type rating course of F-16. The last year they passed their checks on piston engine aircraft. Now they finished with jets and will go for F-16 very soon. In parallel, they attended the English course, so I guess in roughly 1 year they will be ready to fly in the Ukrainian Air Force. But for F-16, I guess they will go outside UK for the type rating, in countries like United States, Denmark, Netherlands and Romania. And guys, you see that airplane, well, probably Ukraine after all needs those, because Ukraine came out with idea of how to use the attack airplanes properly even without the air superiority. On this image you may see the Soviet analog of A-10 Sukhoi-25 attack airplane, which carries in this case the French-made precise gliding bomb. So the idea for the airplane is to fly very low at a high speed, and just before reaching the target, airplane rises up, the nose climbing really fast, dropping the bomb like you can see on this image, and the bomb later on precisely hit the target. It's the most vulnerable spot for the airplane, being spotted by the Russian air defense, but with a fast maneuver it is more or less safe for attack airplane. As you can see, Sukhoi-25 may carry at least 2 of those French guided bombs, but with A-10 it could be even more. Yeah, obviously this tactics has its own flaws, because obviously it's better to drop the bomb from the very high altitude, but there the airplane is the most vulnerable. Here you have just a limited range for the bomb to glide to the target, but still it allows the airplane to operate from the further distance compared to the standard aviation bomb. And also French bombs, they're very precise. Also JDAM sometimes are used. So this kind of the airplane has all of the chances to operate on the front lines. Because Ukraine is definitely in lack of the attack airplanes nowadays. There were not many before even the full-scale war started, and Ukraine lost some of them. But now with these tactics, Ukraine loses the airplanes, but the rate of the losses dropped because Ukraine uses new tactics and the French gliding bombs. Oh, by the way, I found the video. So Sukhoi 25 flies very low and on relatively high speed. Just before attacking, it goes up and then it drops the bombs and turns straight away to save the airplane, and then it descends closer to the ground. This is the standard attack maneuver for this kind of the airplane. Now guys, about the new year, well, so much terrible events happened actually for the last 24 hours. For example, this Tesla Cybertruck, which was parked in front of the Trump Tower in Las Vegas, I guess, just kaboomed, zeroing its driver. A person who was standing nearby and probably was waiting for his taxi with the luggage was delivered to the hospital with some of the injuries. As for YouTube, I cannot show you the kaboom of Tesla itself, but you may check out my Telegram or just type Cybertruck kaboom in Twitter. Alright, and now Elon Musk says that we now confirm that explosion was caused by the very large fireworks and or the bomb carried in the bed in the rented Cybertruck and is unrelated to the vehicle itself. All vehicle telemetry was positive at the time of the kaboom, and judging on the video, it definitely looks like that. An absolutely terrible attack happened in New Orleans where 15 people reported to be unalive by the attacker in this truck, who just hit the crowd at a high speed. Initially there were reports that the suspect was a legal immigrant, but in fact he is the American-born citizen with military experience in American army. So now FBI says that Jabbar is definitely a suspect. Jabbar, who died at the scene of the attack, was the United States-born citizen who lived in Texas. I can tell you that the person was army veteran, don't say it. We believe he was a horrible discharge. Was it the outcome of the post-traumatic syndrome, or was he influenced by some of the organization? Well, we'll see as investigation continues. And also there were some of the cases in Germany that crazy people start to fire fireworks left and right. 5 persons report to be unalive by that. It's crazy. Police reported that it was like a war zone. And I cannot show those images here either. Right guys, and now to the Frontlines review. I will tell you my forecast also for this year, for 2025, of how the situation might develop in the east at first, but let's go to the recent update. So here it was yesterday and it is today. The huge movement of the Russian armed forces, they already entered the industrial area of Kurakhove, the place where Ukrainian soldiers were hiding for a very long time. Well, I wouldn't say like hiding completely, but operating from the basements of this power plant. But it seems like Ukraine has already left this area, and it is understandable that Russia will advance further, occupying this region between 2 of the rivers. And gradually they will advance towards the Andriivka village. As you see, Russia goes with a small pocket, so they go with 2 of the assault directions. Here, they have the bigger pockets and the biggest pocket in this place. That's their strategy and their tactics. Also, they moved just a little in Pokrovsk yesterday and today towards this village. And there was the light movement near Vozdvizhenka. I think that Russians already occupied this village. So we may see how Russia keeps initiative and continue to advance in the east. And it is understandable that with the current pace they will occupy Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk is the main key city for the entire Donbass, and it is also the key for the Russian army to go westbound towards Dnipro. But for now it's better to say about Pavlograd, which is on the way to Dnipro. Yeah, probably should use the different color. So if Russia occupies Pokrovsk, they have 2 of the main variants. First one to go to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, and the second one to go northbound, trying to encircle this big agglomeration of the cities, Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Drushkivka, Konstantinovka, which is basically a big long settlement. There's almost no gap between those. But to do it, Russians at first need to cross this line of the settlements. Those are smaller here, but this move from the Russian side would bring them absolutely crazy losses. First, they would lose a lot for the battle for Kursk, as it was for them in Avdiivka. Second, this big settlement line, which is the Ukrainian defense line, basically. And the third one is the battle for those main cities and towns. So to go to the north, Russians need absolutely huge number of the infantry forces, if they would like to use the same tactics they use today with the mid-waves. Potentially hundreds of thousands of the soldiers could be lost for them in this entire operation. But let's say if they want to go to Pavlograd, Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, here, not many settlements, mostly freeway, which might allow Russians to move fast with less losses. Also, it might force Ukraine to use some of the resources from this region, so Russians may start to use their attacks from Chasiv Yar and Bakhmut and from Toretsk. Yeah, again, I should use the different color to show you. So maybe Russians would think that pushing from this area simultaneously advancing to Pavlograd could be more profitable for them. Well, I don't know what Russian army generals really think, but I think that they have this scenario on the table to go to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast and continue to push in the east. At the same time, they would avoid fighting for this area. And in this case, Ukraine will be forced to send more reinforcements to the area to split the forces around. And as we know, Ukraine has just limited resources compared to Russia, especially if we speak about infantry. Yeah, I don't say here the term like human resource because human life is the most precious thing, but for Russia it's the human resource as usual in their mid-waves. So this year I predict that Russians will take Pokrovsk, they will take Velika Novosilka, Toretsk, Chasiv Yar, and they will try to go to Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, at the same time pushing from this side the main settlements of Ukraine. And by the way, if they take Velika Novosilka, they may also push from two of the directions towards Dnipro. And if we go to the north here, you see that Russians' aim is to attack Kupiansk, to occupy at least the part of the city, and more to the south they want to reach Boruva. So their goal this year is to occupy everything on this right-hand side from the Oskil River. From what I know, Ukraine builds the defense line around Izum city. And obviously one more aim for Russia this year is to push Ukrainians out from Kursk. We'll see how it goes for them. For now, Ukraine holds there. Moreover, there are again rumors from the Russian side that Ukraine is up to start a new counteroffensive somewhere between Belgorod and Kursk, well, in this place somewhere. And they say that Ukraine has prepared roughly 20,000 soldiers for this mission. Well, interesting information, but it is only coming from the Russian side. Unfortunately, guys, if we speak about the general perspective of the war for Ukraine, it would be very hard to break the Russian initiative on the front lines and to counterattack with the same pace as Russia, for example, occupies Ukrainian territory for now. But even Russian military bloggers say that the advancement of the Russian army is way too slow compared to what it is needed relative to the size of Ukraine if Russia really wants to occupy it. And the Russians also complain about terrible, absolute crazy losses. So if they want to continue those kind of attacks, they absolutely need to announce the new mobilization. And I'm sure that Putin has this plan, maybe for this year, maybe for the next one. It depends on how many volunteers are willing to join the Russian army, because Russia still pays a lot for those who would like to sign the contract, but volunteers are not forever, so at some point Russian army would struggle with their mid-waves and they would have to announce a new mobilization. I expected it to be the last year, but it wasn't announced they had enough volunteers. But this year, we'll see. Also, Syrsky decided to visit the Kursk region today. Well, I hope that Syrsky explains the situation around 155th Ukrainian Brigade. In this video, I will not tell about it, but tomorrow probably I will. Guys, I'm gonna update you on situation in Ukraine, and not only. I wish you all a happy new year. As usual, peaceful skies wherever you are, and have a great time.